a never-ending nuclear winter, a Mad Max desert hellscape, or a wasteland full of mutated zombies? Movies promise all three, but the real answer is much harder to survive. This is everything Hollywood gets wrong about the nuclear apocalypse. Let's start with the big moment, the detonation. You've seen it in every movie that features a nuke going off. First comes the thermal blast, a 100 million degrees Celsius fireball that's accompanied by a bright flash of light, one that could seriously damage your eyes if you look at it without proper protection. Then there's the shockwave of crushing air pressure and winds, along with a surface burst that cuts a huge crater into the ground. And that is still not the worst part. But we know what you're really thinking. You shelled out for that vintage lead-lined fridge as part of your doomsday prepper strategy, ignoring the whole poisonous lead near your food issue. So could you hide in that thing and ride out the blast like Indiana Jones in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? Haven't seen it? Don't worry, it's completely forgettable. But no, you could not survive a nuclear blast in the fridge. And this is where the movie logic falls apart. For starters, you'd actually need the lead encasing you to be several feet thick to provide any meaningful protection from radiation, and even then you'd still likely get cooked by the initial thermal blast. And then there's the shockwave. That would be traveling at the speed of sound, so your cooked body would be launched into the air and then come hurtling back down at around 760 miles per hour. Anything that was left of you would be reduced to a fine liquid paste, though really you'd be unlikely to have even gotten that far. The fridge would most likely be annihilated in the thermal blast itself. But let's just say it wasn't, so we can demonstrate another thing that movies get wrong about nuclear explosions. The shockwave actually has two phases, one positive, that's where the wave flows out, and this is the part the movies show, and one negative, where it flows back in. This is the part that they don't, and that's because the blast creates a low-pressure bubble at its center, sucking debris back in after the initial shockwave throws everything outward. Even if you somehow get blown out, odds are you'd get dragged straight back in. So if the blast itself doesn't kill you, Hollywood usually implies you have made it. The explosion fades and the dust and debris settles, and survivors crawl out into a post-apocalyptic city. But that is just a scriptwriter's fantasy. The reality is a lot more destructive and terrifying. A nuclear explosion doesn't end with one blast, it starts 1,000 fires all at once. The thermal pulse ignites anything flammable within miles. Cars, buildings, trees, they are all going up in flames. Everything will be burning all across the city, and all at the same time. These blazes eventually merge into massive firestorms that create their own hurricane-force winds, pulling in oxygen, debris, and people. The city starts consuming itself. It happened in Dresden and Tokyo during World War II, and nuclear weapons are extremely effective at triggering it. This is the part the movies rarely show. Because surviving the blast doesn't mean safety, it often means being trapped in a burning city where the air itself becomes a weapon. There is no barren wasteland. The immediate aftermath is heat, smoke, collapsing buildings, and walls of fire. And this is only in the first few hours. But let's go to Hollywood and say you weren't blown up completely or vaporized in the opening salvo. You might be wondering who fired first. Movies love the idea that once the first nuke flies, the rest are automatic. And if you believe movies like Dr. Strangelove or HBO's miniseries By Dawn's Early Light, a US first strike would automatically trigger Russia's nuclear response. It's called the dead hand, and it means that the world would be doomed to a radioactive hell. Except that doesn't really sum up the true nature of the dead hand. It's just a version of it to make movies feel more dramatic. For starters, the dead hand was never a real designation in Russian military doctrine. It was a cool term cooked up by author David E. Hoffman in 2009 for his book of the same name. What the Russians actually had was called the perimeter system. It was developed in the 1980s when they were worried a sudden American nuclear attack might take out their central command, leaving them unable to retaliate. Rather than the automatic doomsday machine everyone is panicking about in Dr. Strangelove, the perimeter system was actually more of an emergency backup. It ensured that Russia wouldn't immediately lose all leverage in the event of a surprise attack, and this system was always human-activated, not automatic. So nuclear war isn't an unstoppable machine, it is still driven by human decisions. And it's not just the blast radius you have to worry about, because there is another favorite movie trick. If you see that big white mushroom cloud looming on the horizon, you might start to worry about the fallout. Just like every online commentator claims should have happened to Gotham at the end of The Dark Knight Rises. But this is where we've got to give Christopher Nolan some credit. When Batman detonates the nuclear weapon that was used to hold the city hostage, the mushroom cloud is white. It's formed out of all the water particulates evaporating under the immense heat and force of the explosion. Unless Gotham City got really unlucky with the wind direction, they would actually be safe and they wouldn't need to worry about the fallout at all. Which raises an important question: what actually is fallout? Put simply, radioactive fallout is debris irradiated by the blast of the nuclear explosion, which is then carried a great distance by the force of the explosion itself. It means the danger doesn't stop at ground zero. In other words, a powerful enough bomb could spread radioactive dust far beyond the blast site, enough to deliver fatal radiation doses several cities away. Batman's over-the-water detonation and the relatively low range of the bomb itself meant the citizens of Gotham wouldn't be seeing their hair fall out in a week or two. So where is the myth in all this? Because there is one. Given the bomb in the movie had a stated blast radius of 6 miles, there's no way Batman would have gotten out of the danger zone in time. Hollywood and video games suggest that surviving a nuclear apocalypse means hiding in elaborate fallout shelters for generations while the radiation outside slowly decays. But that is just another one of those big, fat nuclear myths. And here's why it doesn't add up. Fallout shelters are actually designed to be occupied for about 2 weeks. If a nuclear bomb drops on top of you, you would need to be miles underground to survive it. Fallout shelters are not designed to help you survive the blast of a nuclear weapon. They are just to shield you from the radioactive fallout itself while it is still lingering in the air. So surviving the blast and the fallout means humanity has a chance. Or do they? From our time seeing countless movies, from Mad Max to Hell Comes to Frogtown, we know that the nuclear apocalypse would lead to surviving humans having freakish mutant babies, or worse, ones that can't even survive birth itself. Would the mutant inherit the Earth, or would we not be able to breed at all? As you probably guessed, there's another myth right there, and it's been disproven by science. To quote a 1991 study titled "The Children of Atomic Bomb Survivors: A Genetic Study," the present results show that there are no statistically significant increases in the frequency of chromosome abnormalities among the children of the exposed. But what about animals or other creatures? From the giant insect movies of the 1950s and 60s to Godzilla himself, Hollywood has promised that nuclear power creates monsters. But is there any truth to that? Thankfully, in the bleakest way possible, we have Chernobyl and Fukushima as real-world test cases for what long-term radiation does to life. Severe mutations would not be becoming freakishly large or getting atomic breath. Real life is much crueler. Instead, they'd be getting aggressive cancerous tumors. So animals with extreme genetic mutations as a result of radiation exposure often just end up dying painful and quick deaths. But there are more subtle and less dangerous mutations out there too. In the words of Professor Timothy Mousseau, a biological scientist who spent 25 years studying ecosystems at nuclear disaster sites, there are mutations that have small or partial effects and so they don't kill the organism. You might see individuals with extra digits, strange growths, or asymmetries, where one leg or wing is longer than another. Some animals do adapt to better handle being in a more radioactive environment. Chernobyl tree frogs have on average 44% darker skin than their non-Chernobyl cousins, because it helps them better process ionizing radiation. But we're sorry to tell you that you almost definitely won't be getting any incredible Hulk-style radioactive superpowers. But thermal blasts and fallout aren't the only things you need to worry about. What about the classic trope of nuclear apocalypse movies, the electromagnetic pulse or EMP? Would a nuke going off really cause electrical chaos? The answer is, it depends. The EMP effect of a nuclear weapon only works if it's detonated high up enough in the atmosphere. It's a key plot point in the James Bond movie and basis for an iconic video game, GoldenEye. Russian satellites would detonate nuclear weapons in the upper atmosphere and fry the electronics in key tactical areas. But would that kind of nuclear assault actually work? You'll be relieved to hear visions of cars stopping dead in the streets and entire power grids shutting down are a Hollywood exaggeration. Power grids are built with a large number of redundancies for this particular scenario, as well as more mundane power outages, so you likely wouldn't see widespread damage to power plant transformers. So even if the grid was disabled, in a worst-case scenario, it could be back up within a couple of months with dedicated work, provided we're not all dead from a thermal blast or fallout, of course. Speaking of what the world would look like after a big nuclear blast, do Fallout and Mad Max have it right? Will we spend the nuclear post-apocalypse driving custom hot rods through an endless desert, firing Vietnam War-era guns at each other while wearing BDSM gear? This is another matter where the experts are inclined to disagree with the Hollywood movie magic makers out there. In contrast to the dusty desert battles of post-apocalyptic movies, scientists believe the world would get much colder. In an all-out nuclear war, up to 150 million tons of smoke could be thrown into the atmosphere, cooling the planet into a new ice age, one with dangerously high UV levels, so it would be the worst of both worlds. And if you are a true Mad Max fan, you're probably thinking this already. The nuclear apocalypse happens after Mad Max 2, where a nuclear war triggers a nuclear winter that eventually gives way to a nuclear summer. The general consensus is that this brand new, even worse ice age wouldn't be a seasonal affair. It'd likely last around 30 years according to some estimates. So if we're thinking realism, then Mad Max would need to be a senior citizen in the latter movies, or more realistically still, a frozen over corpse. This would make the real result of a mass nuclear war a lot like the ones depicted in the grimmer, less action-focused nuclear war movies like The Day After and Threads. However, nothing is simple when it comes to the end of the world. The production of massive amounts of black smoke isn't disputed, but the exact effects on global weather and the environment are so unprecedented that no one knows how much the planet would change. In the words of RAND nuclear policy researcher Dr. Edward Geist, the main thing to keep in mind is that there is a tremendous amount of uncertainty about what a real nuclear war would be like. The only real-world case we have is the atomic bombings of Japan at the end of World War II, and we have good reason to doubt that nuclear weapons used in today's environment would be similar. For context, the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in the 1940s were equivalent in power to about 20 million tons of TNT. The modern Tsar Bomba, the largest nuclear weapon that currently exists, is closer to 50 million tons. As Geist said, so much of the theory we've been discussing comes from the template set by those two fateful bombs and extrapolating based on the data of modern nuclear arsenals. So could all of this really turn into a true planetary apocalypse, a nuclear winter, a permanently scarred Earth? And if so, how many nukes would it actually take? One bomb wouldn't do it. Even a small nuclear war wouldn't necessarily end the world. The real danger starts with hundreds of nuclear weapons raining down on cities. A full-scale US-Russia nuclear war involving thousands of warheads is one of the few scenarios scientists think could realistically cause enough smoke to be launched into the atmosphere. And while that doesn't mean that Earth becomes uninhabitable, it could make supporting billions of people impossible. Hollywood shows the end of the world in an instant, but really civilization fails before the planet does. The real danger was never mutant zombies, endless deserts, or cinematic doomsday machines. A full-blown nuclear war would be slower and far more devastating than Hollywood. Now go check out This Is How You Actually Survive a Nuclear Attack, or watch this instead.